Hello and welcome to Geekverse Sidequest, your weekly self-video game news, reviews, and more here on the Geekverse Podcast Network. I'm your host, the adoring fan, Dylan Moss, and I have with me the outlaw, Taylor Field. How's it going today, my friend?
It is good. It is good. I'm always happy to be here to talk about certain things that are video game related, like what we just got to see, and it should be a good time.
It's like you're trying to hide what we're talking about. Yeah, today we are talking about the Xbox and Starfield showcases. We're going to break it all down. And yeah, I'm very excited to get into it. And I got back last week, and already I've done 3 side quest episodes, one with you, one with Kirkland, and one with Travis. So this is very good. I feel like I'm already back into the swing of things over here. And yeah, so because of that, we have a lot of stuff for people to check out. As I just said, me and Travis covered the Summer Game Fest showcase from a few days ago. Me and Kirkland, we just shat the shit pretty much. Shot the shit, not shat the shit. Shot. That's hard to say in the past tense. I've never tried to do that before. We just talked about a bunch of games we've been playing, so that was fun as well. And then Travis will be joining me again, I guess tomorrow, maybe Tuesday by the time it's up on the feeds, to break down the Ubisoft forward as well as there's a Capcom showcase tomorrow. Not sure what will be there. But we know one thing that's going to be at Ubisoft tomorrow, and it should be a pretty big deal. So me and Travis will break that down. And Taylor, you're free to join us. I'm sure you're not busy at all, so you can definitely tag along if you want.
I like that.
And I think that's pretty much it. I kind of want to get right into it, but yeah, everyone, thank you for joining us. Make sure to join the Discord where we had a bit of a live chat. I feel like it was kind of quiet today. It started off strong, but then I feel like I was just so focused I wasn't even really in the Discord talking too much. And then join a Patreon to get episodes early and ad-free, get that exclusive ad-free feed that you can put into your phone and listen that way. And of course, help us hit that goal of 50 patrons by the end of July 31st. We're trying to do that. And if you do, you unlock 5 exclusive episodes for you and everyone else on the main feeds. And yeah, help us hit that goal because we are working hard over here trying to make this thing happen. So let's get right into it. Bundling obviously the Starfield Direct into the Xbox One because they branded it as different ones. I feel like they just did that because it's still new-ish, the Xbox acquisition of Bethesda, and they just want to make sure that people know, like, if you want Starfield, come check out this Xbox thing. I think they're still trying to do that for maybe a couple more years before it's for like the general audience understand what happened with that acquisition. But yeah, what are your just kind of very brief overall thoughts of this showcase in terms of the quality of it, in terms of just the hype level? What did you think?
My hype going in was it was just accelerating up and up and up, and this is largely attributed to the fact that, and I think it's taken a few presentations to get to this point where it's just like world premiere, and then it's like a 15-second, 30-second trailer, and then it's like available on Games Pass, then world premiere, and it just keeps rolling. It's like,
and that
this
sound
is good.
effect every time.
Oh yeah, every time. Yeah. So, and again, it had a strong start, which we'll be talking about. So I'm very excited about that. But yeah, I think it's consistent. It's going through. It had maybe 3 to 4 minute pauses where people were talking about a specific game, which is totally okay. It breaks it up a little bit from just like steamrolling through. But all in all, there's a few things here that really got me excited. A few things that, one in particular that I was looking forward to, but I wasn't going to be driving in there. But now I'm considering like, oh, I think I want to like day one. Like, this is just fantastic.
Okay.
It sold me. So I think all in all, this is pretty good. Now I watched the Summer Games Fest, and I just kind of like tuned into like the Sony one that they did not too long ago. But yeah, it's nice just to have seen such a consistent flow here. And there were a few things I wanted to see but didn't get to see, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is a very good showcase from Xbox. I think it moved very quickly. Like, I feel like we got to Starfield a lot faster than I was expecting. I don't know why, but that's not because there wasn't a lot to show. Like, I think they did show a lot. I think maybe my one criticism would be that, and this was been one for Xbox many a year, especially 2 years ago and then years before that, where it's like, show us gameplay. Enough of these, CGI trailers with no release dates, and it's just like, why are you showing this stuff again? And I think the show started with 2 of those back to back, and that's maybe why I was like, okay, Xbox, what's going on here? I'm getting a bit worried. And then they started showing a lot more gameplay and not really release dates, just 2024. I do think that Xbox is scared to show release dates just because of Starfield and Redfall specifically last year, where they were doing release dates and stuff, and then everything got pushed around. And I think it's fine to not do a release date until you're closer to it, but I also feel like throwing 2024 on a thing is almost meaningless at this point. So I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I don't want a release date that's not actually going to stick, but then I also want something to just, get ready for. But I guess the big takeaway is that really just two big Xbox games for the rest of the year. We already knew what they were, and they confirmed that Starfield and Forza Motorsport are still coming this year, and that's the main thing. But yeah, just there was a lot of games here that were for me specifically. I think for a lot of people, they might go with that Summer Game Fest one as the better showcase overall, the hype level for them. But for me personally, there was a ton of things here, and it helps that I got the Game Pass just, walking right into a lot of these games. But there was a lot of things here, some surprises or just reminders of games that we have before that were pretty exciting. I really wanted to see Avowed, and I got that. I really wanted to see Fable. We got that. That was not necessarily what I wanted to see. And then the main thing here was Starfield. And I think I actually want to jump into Starfield right away. We're going to go through this in order, but I want to skip to the end and bring Starfield up first and then get into this. I feel weird about this because I think last year they did like that, 10, 12 minutes showing off Starfield, and I thought that was amazing, right? I've watched that so many times over, and I feel like it was just such a great job of showing like all these different elements of the game. And even though this was a lot longer, I don't feel like I actually gained too much crucial information about Starfield. And I think it's not even really criticism of what this showcase was. I think it's more just, once again, praise to how good it was last year. They showed off so much that's like they really didn't have too many secrets to hide other than, story stuff that they didn't want to spoil, or maybe some more specifics on individual mechanics. But I think the game still looks great. I'm very excited about it. We know it's coming September 6th, and there was something at the end that was very quick, something about like 5-day early access. So maybe there's a way to even play it a bit sooner, which I will be looking to do because I'm busy the weekend it comes out. So I'd love to play it essentially a week early. But yeah, what were your big takeaways from the Starfield Direct, if anything? Do you have a similar vibe to me, or was there something more that you really got out of it that you didn't get last year?
Just the real depth again. Just we know that there was lots of planets and everything, but just again hearing Todd Howard say, 1,000 planets, and just kind of highlighting those key components, like, yeah, that is a thing, eh? That's just crazy. You're like, you're on this planet's surface, like that's not just a backdrop. So that moon over there, you can go to it. It's like, okay.
And there's nothing on it but iron, but you can go to it.
So those sorts of things, getting to see more of the space combat. Like, I feel like this is really where it kind of turned around, because I wanted to play it, but I want to play it immediately now, seeing what they were emphasizing in this direct. So getting to, like, I don't even know if I'm going to spend my time really on planets as much. I just want to build my ship. Seeing the mech ships was cool. That was hilarious. But I want to build my ship. I love the idea of going around, and you can have different ways of interacting with their ships. You can pirate them. You can hail them, talk to them. You can like destroy them, board them. Like, you can do so many different things with that, and I really like it. One of my favorite things too was just to take their ship, and you can sell it, put it into your fleet of ships and all that kind of stuff. But the key thing with the flying, this is something that Star Wars Squadrons did that I love, is you have basically like your nav, and you can redirect your power source to like speed, shields, weaponry, and having that really emphasized here, I love that so much. Your time it takes to jump from planet to planet, you can reduce that by putting your energy in there. And I'm just thinking in my mind, like, man, what if I'm in like a battle, I gotta like bounce real quick, or like just I love diverting systems like that in a ship. It makes it so much more immersive. So
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that actually for me probably would be the biggest new takeaway. And last year we did know that they did confirm that there is space combat, but we didn't really see anything about it. And so to get those mechanics, it seems like really simple too. Like essentially just on the D-pad, you go left or right through those 6 options that you mentioned, and then just up or down. So I like that kind of on the fly in the middle of a battle, you could realistically do that and change your stats around. The guy you're facing is very fast, you can't catch him. Quickly go around and put your speed up. Or I feel like I'm just going to be ditching every fight. I feel like that's my thing. But then seeing more of it, I'm like, man, I actually want to get into it, because docking an enemy ship and then going and having like some indoor combat after that, and maybe like you've blown out part of the ship, so there's just a zero gravity fight going on in there. And then, yeah, like what you said of being able to take over a ship and just like send it back to your garage. I don't know how many ships you can have in your garage. I don't know if you could just like, depending on how many outposts you have, maybe you can just like throw your ships there if you have bonus space or something like that. But yeah, that mechanic seems very in-depth. And then, yeah, just the customizing the ship is something I wanted to see more of as well. And I don't think I got too much more than I did last year, other than the fact that just seeing more of what the outside customization can look like and making weird things like that one girl who was very excited about her platypus ship in the direct, or as you mentioned, like the kind of mech that you can make. Like that's really cool that you can do this stuff, and I want to see some weird ships like that doing combat now too. Like that just seems really fun. But yeah, I love that there's kind of that push and pull of how much functionality you want on the ship versus how much combat power do you want, or yeah, just turn it into a smuggler ship and get a ton of cargo space, and like you can try and smuggle in, and you're gonna get scanned when you're going into cities and stuff like that. All those mechanics seem really cool, and I guess I'm surprised because after last year I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be doing much space stuff. I think I'm just gonna go to planets and explore. But now I'm like, yeah, I actually do want to get into some of those mechanics too and make sure I'm building up my money so I can actually make some cool ships.
You mentioned when you attack a ship and like hitting certain components. I like that they really showcased that. I think it was probably like some type of skill tree that's connected with your ship, or unlock like a plug-in, not a plug-in, but something. And it basically lets you focus your attacks on key components of a ship that you're attacking, which is very cool. Again, it's just so immersive.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So they talked a little bit more about the RPG mechanics. So we know there's 5, I guess, categories. Like one would be science, one was like social, and things like this, and then there's a ton of skills within each one of those. And I was pretty happy with what they showed here, especially for me. It's a step up from what Fallout 4 did in a skill tree sense, and I think even a slight improvement from what Skyrim did, which is that you essentially when you level up you get 1 skill point, pretty simple, and then you can put that into a certain skill, either a new skill or leveling up the tier of a skill that you already have. And then to unlock those tiers of a skill you have to complete challenges. So I think that's great that it's like, okay, if you want to become a really great stealth player and you want to get all those skills, you actually have to do a bunch of stealth and like prove that you can use those abilities before you get to the next tier, which I think is great. I think there's just kind of an imbalance in some of those Skyrim or Fallout things where you can become a master of a skill that you've never even used just because you can like put stats wherever you want. And so I think this is a good way where you can get into one level into a bunch of different skills, so you can start dabbling with it, but then you actually have to use it and quote unquote master it before you can put those further skills there. And I'm curious too if those different tiers, if like the 2nd, 3rd, 4th tier are going to require more than 1 skill point, so you'd have to level up multiple times. I'm guessing based on how many skills there just is across those 5 categories, that each one will always cost 1, so each time you level up. So curious to see that. And then it seems like XP is just given based on like discovering locations, killing enemies, rather than like using an individual skill. You can do those however you want. So yeah, any takeaways for you from the RPG mechanics of it?
Um, yeah, I mean Skyrim, for what I remember, it's like it's pretty basic. So I think there's always room to grow when it comes to a skill tree, and especially if they're changing it up there. And I was looking too with just like with the skill tree and just the combat and just how different it was, because I kind of have a personal issue sometimes with Bethesda first person shooters. I find it a little tricky, and that's probably why I never got into Fallout. But seeing how that kind of like was refined in this, it seemed a lot more like something I could really get used to, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I guess in Fallout it's like the shooting and combat wasn't great, but they had VATS, so it didn't matter if you couldn't shoot very well because you could just use VATS. But it seems like they've just really, I think Fallout 4 had very good combat. I think they did improve it there, but this just seems like even a step up in terms of the game feel of shooting and stuff like that. There was a couple things in the skill tree elements that surprised me, like what you mentioned, that targeting module. Like I would have expected that to be an upgrade to your ship, right? Like you buy some targeting thing, you slap it on your ship somewhere, and now you have the ability to do that. The other one that the guy was mentioning was he likes to jetpack around, and that's like a skill on the skill tree. So I thought that stuff was a bit bizarre. Like some of those things would seem more like upgrades to your character, the costume you're wearing, or the ship, but it seems like I guess that stuff is more cosmetic, and then the actual skill is where you're going to improve your ability there. But then it's weird, like a lot of the ship stuff, it's like, okay, well, you're putting like a habitation module on your ships, and you can have more crew members. So I'm curious about the balance there of how much of that stuff is going to be tucked away into skill trees and how much of it will be tucked into just physical upgrades onto your character.
That's a good mention about the targeting system in comparison to just like skill trees and upgrades, because there was a one point where he was putting on like a new engine module to kind of jump faster, but then that's an actual like a physical upgrade as opposed to a skill tree
right
unlock. So that is interesting.
Yeah, I wonder how they decided which ones should be physical upgrades, which ones should be
Mm-hmm.
based on skill trees, or maybe there's a combination of both. Like maybe you could pimp out your ship with a huge engine, or you could just like level up a skill that makes you better at that, or you could do both and then like multiply how good you
Mm-hmm.
exponentially get better at it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they showed off because I feel like we hadn't seen this before. Was like melee weapons, and truthfully, they didn't show much. Like you had a knife or like a pickaxe kind of thing, and then one guy was really excited about the like fist, just
Mm-hmm.
like punching people. It's like I forget what it was called. It was like a narrow strike or something like that, where you can just deal extra damage. That looked very fun. It looked like almost like a Fallout Power Glove. Like you just launch enemies super far away. So that was cool to see. I hope there's some more creative and weird melee weapons that you can make, especially in the crafting menu. Like make some just monstrosities. Like even Outer Worlds had some really cool like physical melee weapons. So I'd be interested to see some of that stuff. And they also mentioned like they showed off kind of some zero grav fighting. I thought that looked really cool when you're shooting your guns. They'll like physically push you backwards. But then I'm immediately thinking like, okay, but now if I want to catch up to an enemy, I could just turn around, shoot behind me, and try and catch up. And then laser weapons come in where they don't really care so much about the gravity of your individual room and stuff like that. So that seemed really exciting for me. I can't really tell if different planets have a different amount of base gravity. It seems like the character's always jumping a
That's
similar
what they
amount.
said, right? They said
Yeah,
like different areas have different levels of gravity.
I would assume so. I guess I'm just not like seeing that so much, and maybe it's because of like the It's hard to tell what's when he's jetpacking versus when he's just jumping and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. But that's a very exciting thing too. And even like a planet that has super high gravity, so you can't like jump at all. Like that seems like a fun, difficult challenge when that pops up as well.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing, I don't know if you call it was like pretty much right at the end, right before the little sizzle reel at the end of the direct, was the character walked into a room. There's like 5 or 6 enemies, and he did like something weird with his hands, I think. Yeah, and then like everyone just went zero gravity and almost like got paralyzed or something like that. Like, is that like a Skyrim shout? Is like I'm guessing there's no like magic skill tree because they're trying to be pretty realistic with it. So I have to assume it's more of like a shout thing based on like when you go through the single player story and you're uncovering these weird artifacts, you get some of these more abilities. What do you think we should expect there though?
Yeah, they intentionally put that right there to make people wonder for sure. It's a
Exactly. They did
complete
not want to show too
mystery.
much about it. Yeah.
No, it felt so different from everything that we were seeing at this point. And it just like, oh, is he using the force? This is just like very, very interesting. And it has to be a story element because again, very vague on what's going on, finding these artifacts pre-existing intelligent civilization that's affiliated with them. And yeah, all of a sudden he's lifting his hand and everyone is incapacitated in this hallway. So it's either something, maybe you have like a wireless attack that you can use, maybe like an EMP of some kind. I don't know, but there's something ambiguous or mysterious that's going on with it that clearly needs some more explanation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited to find out about that. What else was there? They showed off like companions in general. They really highlighted these main characters. I forget the name of the organization, but it's like where you start, and it's kind of seems like what the main quest is going to be. It was with this group of characters. They introduced them all by name. They all had, like their little quirk. A couple of them were like falling in love at one point. There's a lot of stuff going on there, and they can join you in your crew. And like during the sequence, they introduced the adoring fan, who famously from Oblivion, when you're going through the arena quest line and you're doing really great there, you're winning. The adoring fan comes out and he's like in love with you, and he has the exact same voice. He has the goofy yellow hair in that game, and he can become like a companion. He's just annoying, adoring fan. And I feel like he was in Skyrim too, but I can't remember. I feel like
I
he
don't
wasn't there,
remember.
but I can't remember. He's like now one of these recurring characters, and he has the same name. So obviously he's kind of transcending universes here, the adoring fan. So I don't know how I feel about that. I'm into it, I guess, but also I don't know how much they're gonna reference their other worlds in their games in overt ways like that. So that was interesting. What else was there? These cities, like they showed off some more of those, and they different factions behind them. I'm really curious. It seems like any planet that has a city will only ever have one city, and now everyone that would be on that planet has all like congregated in this one spot. So I don't know how much you'll get of that experience of like an Elder Scrolls or I guess Fallout 2, where in a city you like leave and then you're like walking along a road until you find another city. Like I don't feel like we'll get much of that, and I'm also getting the vibe that there's just not a ton of cities towns in general. I feel like they would have showed a lot more of those. Instead, there's just like little dungeon areas, your outposts, and then these like few major cities from the big factions in the game.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get multiple big hubs on these planets. I think that would be really, really beneficial. It's just
Mm-hmm.
more immersive. But there was a cool thing, and I think when you're discovering probably these more like remote, isolated communities on these planets, where this one character, I can't remember the context fully, but she was like, "Oh, you're from Earth? We thought we were the only ones." And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of cool. Like, okay, so we're gonna have different groups of humanity that's gone to the stars, thinking they're the only ones that have left Earth, and they've started up their own planets and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, again, more city hubs on one planet.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned Earth because that's, I guess, a question I've had. And there was also at one point there was a shot of like the Terran Preservation Club or something like that. So I'm guessing Earth got like depleted of resources or was overpopulated or something like that. Or maybe there's like a meteor or something, and humanity had to flee Earth. But then they also showed that one of the major cities is set on Mars, and it's like a big mining civilization there. So I'm guessing, since you're going to solar systems in this game, if you can go to Mars, I'm guessing you can go to our solar system and visit all of the planets, which is a very exciting thing for me. Like I really love that idea, and I doubt they'll have like all 60 moons of Saturn like it actually exists, but that would be cool if they went pretty in depth with that star system in general. But then that would also mean then that Earth would be a place that you could either visit, or if it has crumbled and destroyed, then I guess you can still see the remnants of it in some way. But yeah, like, do you expect something like that at this point? I feel like they haven't shown much of that, but maybe that's a good like secret for players in the game to eventually go to Mars and then be like, damn, I just want to go around, check out Pluto, all this stuff.
I hope they keep it a secret, because I feel like this is something that we all as gamers and players of this game are going to have in common, is planet Earth. And
Mm-hmm.
that would just be the wildest thing. If you see all these cool planets, you're checking out Alpha Centauri and you're going around, everything looks cool, and you go back to our home solar system and Earth is just like shattered, and like it's
Yeah.
like, what the like, I need to know what happened. I think that'd be a really fun take.
Because I think it would be hard for them to make that planet like an actual place you can go to, and how would they justify not having a million cities and towns and
Yeah.
things to interact with? Like that would be a good place for them to have some reference to Fallout, where you can go to some place from one of their other games or something like that. Or I don't know, maybe Elder Scrolls exists in this universe and you can go to one of those planets
Crazy
to Nern, I
crossover.
guess. That would be very fun. I mean, some of the aliens that we saw and some of the planets and the fauna were pretty wild. I don't think there's anything too crazy. There is some like colorful planets, some weird looking creatures. But they also, I don't think there's like technically alien humanoid people, right? Like you can't play, like you're playing as a human distinctly. You're not playing some weird alien creature. So there seemed to be like, I guess they really highlighted that here as like the realism, the down to earth, the grounded nature of this game, and having all these different places to explore. But I'm sure they also want to keep some of that stuff pretty well hidden. I'm trying to think what else there was from the showcase about the game itself that was not really shown last year, because we could talk about some of these other mechanics, but I feel like there are things that we would just be reiterating from last year.
Do they go into the the customization very much? Because you get like 40 presets, then you can change like their walking style. Was that all covered?
Honestly, a lot of it was like I
Okay.
don't feel like I had any new takeaways from it other than it looks really good, and they went through they like obviously very detailed in how they created this stuff, and I'm into it. I like that ability. I'm more interested in like creating your character and your background and those stat related things, and the background stuff. They mentioned that too last year, though we actually got to see it a bit more in practice. Where if you're a chef, you'll have characters commenting on that, or if you're a beastmaster and you talk to this random guy at this restaurant, like he needs a beastmaster specifically. So I really like that stuff as well, because I feel like they kind of turned away from some of those elements with their most recent games, and I feel like that's going back to more some core Bethesda mechanics in terms of really RPG mechanics of your characters and how many skills there are. It does feel like the kind of game where you want to probably do multiple playthroughs and try some characters with different backgrounds and whatnot. So I'm into all that stuff. But and yeah, what were you excited about from that element of the game?
Well, I think it's gonna be really really cool. Again, like I'm big on the customization. I usually have my set like Dark Elf or sometimes Argonian in Elder
Mm-hmm.
Scrolls games, but I think that just being able to just manipulate, not manipulate, but really just expand on your character customization like this, like never before. It's just really gets me. That's why I mentioned like just changing your walking stance. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've never really thought about that in a game before. It's really that's just one of the many things.
Yeah, that's the thing that me and Kirkland were getting all giddy about last year, talking about like, wow, that's such a cool. Even though there's only two styles, but it's like I'm still into it. Uh, okay, so here's the thing that I really need to go back and listen to the exact words this guy was using again because I found it particularly interesting. But he was talking about the procedural generation that they used to create this game, and I was under the impression that they use procedural generation to like, okay, let's create the outline of a planet, and then afterwards someone will go in, check it out, make sure there isn't like any bugs, like anything weird happening, and then like maybe they'd go in at that point and like, okay, we're gonna put a mine here, and like here's this dungeon, and we're creating this dungeon. But it seems more like obviously like Alpha Centauri. Like I'm sure that planet is the exact same. It's static through playthroughs, through whatever different players going to it. That city, obviously, but hopefully the rest of the planet too. But it seems like procedural generation is more like this is almost the reason why you can't go from space down to a planet in real time, and that's a loading screen. Is it because it seems like in that loading screen is when things are actually getting put on that planet. So when I go to Kepler 77b and you go there, like we might have different things, like plants will be in different locations, even like a cave or a mine or an abandoned like a abandoned village or something like that may or may not be there, might be in different places, might be slight differences there. I don't know if essentially the idea is that if you can go drop down to a planet, you can drop down anywhere you want. They're trying to make it so that the interesting content of that planet is close enough to you for it to be relevant and not like a 48-hour walk that way before you would find the interesting content. Or if it's like just truly random, in which like obviously there's going to be some randomness in 1,000 planets. They need to do that. But I was more in the impression that they would do that all beforehand and then like check it over, make sure it's good. But it seems like that's not the case, and you might just. I guess I'm worried about this is what I'm trying to get to because I think about how Skyrim had Radiant quests, which for anyone who doesn't know, it's like essentially you go through the Thieves Guild, you do all those missions that they made, handcrafted, and then after that you can do Radiant quests, which is like, okay, go to this random house and steal this random item from this random unnamed character. And then you could do those infinitively because they were just these very generic quests. But then like the kind of part of the problem with Skyrim is that like sometimes those generic quests were like you couldn't tell the difference between that and some of their base level quests, and that's not like a testament to how good those random quests were. It's how testament to how like generic general quests were. And so I'm thinking about that problem that exists in Skyrim. And I just feel like that could be the case here, where if you're randomly creating all of these planets in real time, like how interesting is that content going to be? I really hope that there's some like really well handcrafted specific levels for big story moments that are interlaced between this randomness. And then at the end of the day, if that randomness is very good and very well done, then I don't have a problem with it. But it's something that I was hearing and I'm like, oh, I don't know about this, but I don't know. I once again, I do need to go back and listen to his exact words there. But yeah, how did you have a takeaway from that element of the showcase when that guy was talking?
Um, I'm wondering like how are like quest guides gonna work? Is or not quest guides, but like what's the term?
Like a quest giver, like just quest lines?
Walkthroughs or walkthroughs. Sorry,
I see. Yeah, yeah.
Am I gonna be able to like do this quest and like pull up a walkthrough online? Because if someone else has this cave generated on the other side of the planet,
yeah, IGN's gonna have their work cut out for them for sure.
yeah, like this cave could spawn like in 2,500 different spots.
Yeah.
Here's 2,500 different guides. It's just it's bonkers. I didn't realize that was something from Skyrim. What was that term you mentioned it with the thieving?
The Radiant Quests is what
Radiant
they called
quests.
it.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that was a thing there, but yeah, that's gonna be pretty fascinating. Like I'm all for the individuality of an experience, I guess, but I just that's yeah. How much is it going to be like repetition?
Because I also felt with Starfield and having 1,000 planets and me being someone who usually does not mainline the quest of Bethesda games in general, because their main quests are not the best content in the game, whether it's doing a side quest or just exploring and finding something. And that joy of being like, oh, Taylor, you have to go to this planet is super sick. But what if you go there and like none of the stuff I experienced is there? Like I imagine the general outline of it will be the same, but I don't know how in depth that randomness truly is of it. So yeah, that's something I'm very cautiously curious about, I guess I will say for today.
I guess maybe at the end of the day, it kind of allows players to come together and be like, "Hey, oh, I love Starfield. I've been going through this and this and this," and someone else like, "Oh, I was doing this," and maybe that's what they
Hmm.
want, that individuality factor. I've never really seen a game
Yeah.
before where it has like you play Oblivion, you know where the Fin Gleam helmet is. You go out there and you get that spot. But now
Right.
we're talking about
Exactly. Yeah.
Fin Gleams in 20 other different places now all of a sudden.
Fucking fin gleam everywhere. Yeah, it's and the thing too I think is potentially great with having 1,000 planets is I feel like the mod support for this game is going to be insane for many years to come. Of like, this modder famously took over this planet and made like a really sick experience, and that's like an essential mod that people are going to download. So we'll see what happens with that stuff down the line. I'm sure the mod support will be great. They didn't really mention that at all in this direct, but I don't think they really want to. I think that's more of a post-launch thing. Speaking of post-launch, they showed off the collector's edition, and they showed off a couple other just, I guess, pre-order bonuses, or like if you're playing it with Game Pass, here are some bonuses you can get. And how all that works is a bit confusing. I'd have to go once again pause the screen on those graphs because they moved it very quickly. But collector's edition includes like a Starfield. I guess the watch is the only thing that's part of the collector's edition, and then there's like a patch and like a wrist strap or something like that. The watch looks cool. It's like the same one as in game, so it's kind of like they did that for Fallout 4 with the Pip-Boy collector's edition thing you could get, and that was a cool thing that they did. So that looks cool, but we also know like with Fallout 4 there was like some canvas bag that they had with the collector's edition that they showed, and then the one that they actually shipped was like some really shitty, like low quality thing. So I don't know how good that watch is going to be. I'm going to let some other people buy it and tell me about it because I don't think I'll be picking that up. They also showed the Starfield controller and the headset, which both look great. I might buy the controller. Like, I really like the look of that. I like the art style that they have going on for that. And then yeah, so they showed something with like, here's, if you get with Game Pass, you can get these other whatever. You probably get a couple weapons, maybe this like perk or some extra credits or something like that. I saw on the side they said access to this post-launch story expansion. So I guess they kind of calmly. Oh, there you go. You got it.
I put it as the background.
Can you put it over us? I don't know if that's
Yes,
it. You can
I
put on the image, right? So Taylor's going to pull that up. But yeah, something about post-launch story content. So we know that there's DLC coming, which I think is a shock to absolutely no one. So that's called Shattered Space. Yeah, so the Constellation skin pack. So maybe like a costume or costume and a weapon skin. You get the soundtrack, art book, that stuff. So up to 5 days early access in asterisk. And what does it say at the bottom?
Early access to 5 days. Actual playtime depends on
Your time zone. Okay, so that's the Constellation. So I'm curious if you need to buy the super expensive edition to get the early access, or if you can just do a pre-order bonus. Because I want early access, but I don't want to get the watch and stuff. Because I feel like the watch too, like that's probably pretty expensive. Even if it's a crappy watch, like they're gonna upcharge that thing to all hell. So we'll have to kind of find out more details about that. But I guess it's good confirmation. Story content's coming later on, which once again not really a surprise, but it's good to know about that.
Well, there were three editions, right? I think the premium edition for console, I think that included the 5 days early access as well. Because there's the regular
Okay.
edition, the standard for like $79 whatever, and then there's the $100 one. It looks like that's premium, and then the collectors, which has the
Right.
watch.
So I'm curious how this is gonna work too, because with Game Pass, like I'm not gonna buy this game, but like Redfall, for example, you can get like the Bite Back edition. So it's like if you have Game Pass, get this. That essentially gives you the collector's edition bonuses, but then you don't have to buy the actual base game because you're playing that through Game Pass. So hopefully there's something like that where you can drop like 30, $40 to get access to this story content, to that skin pack thing, and then early access. So keep an eye on that because I would definitely be picking that up. I mean, I'm already feel like I'm getting a steal here by getting to play the game quote unquote for free with Game Pass. So that's good stuff. Anything else on Starfield? I feel like we could spin wheels talking about a lot of like the specific things, but I also do feel like a lot of it was kind of shown last year. So I don't know how much we need to go in depth on it. But yeah, anything we didn't talk about yet?
No, I think that covers all of it.
Yeah, how would you feel like this affected your hype level for the game?
I mean, it just.
I know you're
it
already super
increased it.
high, so like, can you can get a bit higher?
I can get a bit higher, yeah, because I just I wasn't sure what we're gonna really see in terms of like the star battles, stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and just coming across fleets of like a capital ship, smaller like corvettes, cruisers, and just boarding it, docking with it, talking to
Mm-hmm.
the crew. It just is blowing my mind. I like I said at the start of this, I will be spending most of my time flying in a ship and just
Mm-hmm.
building up my own little spaceport kind of thing. And yeah, just usually I go the good guy. That's kind of my MO
Mm-hmm.
when I play these
Yep.
games. And it's difficult for me to sometimes step aside from that and kind of be bad. But this, like, knowing that these planets are going to scan my ship, I can do like run blockades, like smuggle, like all that kind of stuff. Like I just really driving with this. I want
Mm-hmm.
to loot ships. I want to pirate. I want to be a space pirate.
I
Really
love
do.
it. Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna be more building bases on the planets, and you'll be building stuff in space. I'm excited
Hmm.
to just talk about our adventures as we're both going through it and share tips and tricks and stuff like that. And they did show a little bit more of the base building. I'm very excited for that. I think it looks great. They showed the kind of more isometric camera that you can use, so you can actually build a lot easier than you could in something like Fallout 4. I guess Fallout 76 did have more of an isometric camera, if I'm remembering correctly, so it's easier to build. So they're kind of just carrying that over, I guess, uh, to this. And then yeah, a lot of like crew members. It seems like that mechanic seems generally pretty good, and you can have different ships that have different amounts of how many crew members you can have, and that same thing with your bases and whatnot. And it seems like there's a lot of people you can recruit, and I'm guessing there's maybe some randomness in how you're creating them. Hopefully, they all still feel fairly unique in some way, but all that stuff looks great. That was Starfield. Let's take our first break. We will come back and talk about the Xbox Direct specifically. Okay, we are back. We're going to go through this in chronological ish order, is the way I'm going to describe it. Starting with the very beginning, it opened up with Fable, which was pretty exciting. When I saw Playground, I'm like, oh yeah, Fable time, baby. Um, this is one of the things where there was absolutely no gameplay and there was no release date. So I'm guessing this game is going to come out earliest 2025, and we still don't know what it looks like. And coming from the Forza team, I am very curious what the gameplay is going to look like, because it's a very different switch up for them. But I think maybe the big takeaway for me here is that, and this is even from that first teaser that we got with the frog eating the fairy, is that like tonally it seems like they're nailing it and they're getting that Fable vibe. And this really confirmed that for me. I really liked the humor here. I liked how goofy and over the top and exaggerated it is. I think that's a big part of Fable, and its like art style is just things being very exaggerated. So to have giant pumpkins, I have this giant, and you're doing this battle sequence in this giant's house, and almost like a Jack the Beanstalk kind of thing, right? Climbing up. All that is great, and I'm very excited to see what this game actually is on the inside. But yeah, I think they're getting it tonally, but I do need to see a lot more before I can truly get super duper hyped. But yeah, what did you think of Fable here?
Yeah, I'm like you. I need to see some gameplay. I want to know what's going on. Like my history with Fable, I have played some of them, but I have not fully really immersed myself. But I am
Okay.
for my position is I'm just happy to see an old Xbox title making a comeback on next
Mm-hmm.
gen.
Yep.
This is like, we never got it on Xbox One, like the PS4,
I guess
Xbox One
not.
era,
Hey,
did we?
I think there was like a
Um,
weird little spin-off game or something like that, but that was not
right.
good either. So if it
Hmm.
existed at all, I can't remember the
And
exact name of it, but
they remade the first one too. Didn't they do like a remastered version of that, of Fable
they
1 or
did,
Anniversary
which
Edition?
they did, and that's yeah on Steam too. And that game just has awful camera controls, unfortunately. So it's like for me, it literally makes me motion sick, which no other game has ever made me motion sick before. And you can't buy the original anymore. So quick Fable rant there. So I can't even go back and play the one that didn't make me sick. But yeah, you're right. It is cool to see a bit of a comeback here. Obviously, the original studio line has not around anymore, so it's switched over to Playground. But hopefully, they can nail it. I think visually, obviously this was a CGI trailer, but I think you can pretty safely assured that the visual quality of this game is going to be insane, and that's pretty exciting for me. Even just playing Forza Horizon 5 and driving around those environments, like one of the best, if not the best looking game I've ever seen. So to have that in Fable Fantasy World, hell yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and again, the humor, it's just it's great. I love it. And I was not expecting it to take that twist of, like you said, that Jack and the Beanstalk, this giant, and sees this character and is just trying to like hammer down on the character. You're running through the layout, which is just super cool. So
Mm-hmm.
just wholehearted fantasy.
Yeah. Next up was South of Midnight. So Compulsion Games was acquired by Xbox. I want to say in like 2019 or something like that. and the biggest game they made is We Happy Few, we know that they got acquired, and then they just we haven't heard anything about what they've been working on for many moons. Once again, CGI trailer, so we can only glean so much from this. But yeah, what did you think of South of Midnight?
Yeah, I wanted to play We Happy Few, and that's still on my list that I'll get to eventually. But
I think it was off Game Pass, and then I think it's back on Game Pass. So hopefully it's there.
This just there's something about it. I really liked it. I like this undead character just playing his guitar and just that music kicking in and just playing as a monster hunter of some kind. Just the art style felt really cool. I'm intrigued. I really am. I really want to play this. It looks very different from what I usually go to, but in a very good way. It's very attractive.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I thought this was a really great trailer. The art style for me is fantastic. That kind of more cell shaded, almost like Sea of Thieves-y look, but a little bit more higher detail, combined with just the kind of setting. This creepy undead guy playing the guitar while he's talking to you. Really cool. I'm very excited to see what the game actually is, what the gameplay is. I still have not played We Happy Few either, so I guess I have very little even just reference to point out, okay, what can we kind of expect for gameplay just because I haven't played it yet. So I definitely will play it at some point, hopefully before this game. And once again, this one did not have a release date, and there's no gameplay. So this could be 2025 or later. It's kind of what I'm expecting here. But I'm glad that we at least know what Compulsion's working on. That has been a big question mark from the Xbox first party at this point. I think this is a really good showing for them to come out of, okay, we got acquired. We've been dark for many years. Come out, show this. I think it was pretty impressive for only being CGI. And then we roll from that right into Star Wars Outlaws, which I don't think we had that name drop, right? We just knew Massive was making an open world Star Wars game, and now we can actually say the name of it. So it's Outlaws, set in the classic Dark Ages. This game's coming out 2024. Once again, CGI trailer, but the cherry on top here is that tomorrow at the Ubisoft Forward, they are actually going to show gameplay. So hopefully a lot of gameplay, and we can see what's going on there. But yeah, Taylor, you're the Star Wars guy. You're the outlaw. Tell me about this. What did this get you? Just cream in your jeans over here? I feel like this is just Taylor's cream of the crop here.
Well, yeah, I wasn't. Games Fest went by, Sony, all these things, no Star Wars. I'm thinking, okay, well, if anything, it's got to be the Ubisoft conference. But sure enough, here, you hear that sound cue in of a TIE fighter flying, and I'm throwing everything up on the couch. Oh, here we go. Finally, something Star Wars that I can sink my teeth into to look forward to. And yeah, Outlaws. I was not really expecting the dark times. Travis is probably gonna just,
he already commented on it in the Discord. Yeah, he's like, "Oh, what a surprise!"
He's gonna shat his shit about it.
He shat his shit. Yeah.
So, I'm okay. I'm usually okay with most Star Wars things, but the fact that we're in the dark times, I'm okay with it because it's totally different. We're playing as an outlaw. We're in the underbelly, the crime syndicates. This is fantastic because we were gonna touch upon this more of a bounty hunter sense with that canceled Star Wars 1313 game where we play as a bounty hunter, and we never got that. So from then on, it's mostly just been the main wars, Battlefront, space flying games. You got your Jedi. It's just focusing on those core things. So having this title be a complete U-turn of that, playing as a nobody, I just want to know, what are we to expect in terms of gameplay? How open world is this? What are they really doing here? I have so many questions, but just seeing that at the forefront is just this pirate narrative where you're gambling and you're just trying to make your way in the galaxy, and you got the Empire and you got the Rebellion existing out there, but they're not the imposing forces. I like that. I want to do my own shit. If it's open world, I'm imagining something like Assassin's Creed Valhalla where you're building up your own community and you're fixing up the buildings, bringing more people in, and you go out into the world and you're interacting with these familiar things. Maybe if you are going to another planet, you're dealing. I'm not expecting Starfield level space exploration. That'd be insane. But cool. I like that at the forefront, it's not going to be something we're familiar with like the Empire. It's going to be the crime syndicates.
Yeah, I do really like that setting as well. And we just got Jedi Survivor, and you have that game for what it is. And I think it's cool to go with a different setting, different type of character, different type of combat in this kind of third-person actiony Star Wars situation. I guess a big. I don't really have too many takes until tomorrow. I'm just gonna honestly save my thoughts until like I actually see what the gameplay looks like because this trailer was insane and it looks amazingly huge and it looks like everything you'd ever want. But it's all CGI, so I'm like I'm not gonna throw my chips down yet. But yeah, a big takeaway for me is that it seems like this game has a very set specific protagonist that you're playing as instead of something like a avatar type character or create your own character. It seems like they're really trying to pitch it as like here is this one character. And I don't know if she had a name. I didn't catch if she had one in here, but it seems like you're playing as this character, which I guess Ubisoft generally does that even for their open world games. Like usually are playing as one specific character. So does that excite you? Are you engaged by who this character is that you're going to be playing here, or do you wish it was more like classic open world stuff where you get to create your own character and make them who you want to be?
There are some times an open world game can just be so crazy it can it can like demotivate me. I'll just sit in my chair like I just can't do it. There's too much. It's too much. I'm living life and I got to live life here. I don't know, but
Two lives.
So 2 lives. So sometimes when you have things that are predetermined for you and already established, like this character and a somewhat linear narrative, it's easier for me to kind of get into that and just kind of like if I take a break for a week, go back to it, like okay, yeah, this is where I'm at. I can get on board. I know where I'm going here. This is the character, the theme, everything like that. So I'm okay with it. You're right. Ubisoft does that with their other titles, Assassin's Creed prominently. They usually have characters you can switch sometimes between, or in let's say Odyssey, you could choose to play as a male, you could choose to play as the female. They're different character names, but they pretty much live like the same experiences because you're playing as that character. So maybe that's something they do here. Maybe you aren't limited to playing as her. Maybe you could play as someone else. It'd be cool to play as aliens. That was something that only Battlefront has done as skins for their classes. I would love to play as another species, which they showed tons of aliens throughout this trailer. So, yeah.
What are you most hoping to see tomorrow? What is like your biggest question or questions that you really hope they can answer tomorrow?
It would probably be. I'm just hoping for a good combat system. I like Ubisoft games that are probably because I'm so used to Assassin's Creed. I like the combat and melee combat system, but I don't like in Assassin's Creed games using the bows and the long range stuff. I'm not a fan of it.
I mean, this studio made the Division games, right? Massive.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that is probably a good sign to point to, rather than like specifically the Assassin's Creed teams. And I have to imagine those games have pretty good shooting mechanics for if they're fairly successful. So I feel like that is a pretty good fit for this in that way. I mean, at least in terms of like just having a good feeling combat system, I feel like that team can pull it off.
I would. Okay, yeah, that's very interesting. Then I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping the combat will not be raid-like with how the Division does it. If anything, like I think a good comparison is Ghost Recon Wildlands and then the Division. They're very two similar combat mechanics, but very different in terms of like killing guys and fighting and everything along those lines.
No, I don't expect it to be Division-like in the actual structure of the game, but I think just strictly like how it feels to shoot a gun.
Okay, yeah, it feels great. It's I love it. So if it's like that, then I'm all cash.
Yeah, this team specifically made Assassin's Creed Revelations, Far Cry 3, Just Dance Now, Division 1 and 2, and they're also doing Avatar. So I don't know, they must have a pretty big studio and kind of two teams within this one studio if they're doing both Avatar and Star Wars here releasing back-to-back years. That seems like pretty big scale for both of those things. So who knows exactly, but I mean, for many years they were just kind of doing the Division, so I'm guessing it's those same developers doing this specifically.
Yeah, interesting. That's good to know.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that tomorrow more with Travis and maybe Taylor. Who knows? We'll see. Because I'm very excited to see some of that gameplay and see what kind of the structure of it is and how much. Because with it being Star Wars, you have to imagine you're going to multiple worlds. So how is that going to play off the classic kind of Ubisoft style open world game? I feel like it'll have to be quite different. Rather than one open world, you're going to have a collection of smaller ones. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, I guess, how that goes. Next up was a game called 33 Immortals. So this is from Thunder Lotus, not a first-party studio, but they made Spiritfarer previously, which at least was on Game Pass. I don't think it's there anymore. maybe they'll bring it back. But it seems to be a little bit of a partnership going on here because this game's also going to be a day one Game Pass coming out next year. And the focus here is that it's like a 33 player co-op experience. It looks, I'd say, a little bit like Diablo, not necessarily in style, but in the sort of combat, maybe a bit like Hades, that kind of top down action combat. And yeah, it almost seemed a bit like a battle royale at times, where there was like, meteors and stuff coming down from the sky, killing people. And it's like, are you trying to be the last man standing? But then it is like a co-op game. So I'm guessing you're actually working together. So maybe it's some weird fusion of like battle royale. If you lose people that get knocked out of your team, but you're trying to keep as many people on the team to like beat the boss or whatever it is. So it seems cool. I got to say the art style didn't necessarily do it for me. I still haven't played Spiritfarer, but it's high on my backlog list. I do want to check it out. And I think it's cool that this seems like a huge departure from what Spiritfarer was. That game did have co-op, but it was like 2-player co-op, and it was mostly like the second player gets to like play as a little cat and just walk around. I don't think you get to like do too much. So this seems like a huge departure for them. So I'm happy that they can, really reinvent themselves. And this seems cool. And once again, because it's Game Pass, I will definitely be jumping in with my 32 closest friends to play this. But I don't see this as a big Taylor game. What did you think of this one?
It's not a big Taylor game, but I was not expecting the like 33 player co-op, and I think that's fantastic. We've gone on this linear path as gamers where it's okay, like single player games, split screen, moving on to like 4-player co-op for titles. And when we have tools like Discord and clans and everything that have been growing, you're getting a lot more people in these gaming communities. And so if you can be like, okay, we're doing a big clan session, 33 players on a title like this, I think that's pretty cool. I like seeing that the group was like forming formations where they had like long range attackers in behind and melee guys at the front as they advance. Cool. I thought that was very cool. So things like this where you can coordinate tactically with your clan, I think that's like a good time.
God, that'd be hard to coordinate with that many people, though. Especially with like people having different amounts of latency and stuff like that. Why do you like 33 is such a random number? Most games it'd be like 16, 32, 48 for like competitive games that want like an even number of players, or like battle royales. Love that number of 100 because it's like triple digits. Let's go. Or like even 50 is a thing. 33 is very random. I don't know. I wonder why they chose that. Obviously, it's the name of the game, but I'm curious if there's any more reason beyond that other than they just arbitrarily decided on 33, or maybe like they did 34, 35 and the game started like bug out and get glitchy and they're like, okay, 33 is as many as we can handle on this engine or something.
It's totally plausible. I'm telling myself it's like the lead dev is 33 years old and like that's what we're doing. But
even though this game probably took years to make, so he's like, okay, it's gonna be 33 when we're done the game. Something specific. Speaking of threes, Payday 3 was next up. This is also coming to Game Pass in September. I don't know if this had the world premiere on it. I feel like if I heard about this, I kind of forgot about it existing. I feel like Payday 2 just keeps doing DLCs for years and years. But cool to see Payday 3. I think it looked really good. Like there was a lot of gameplay for this one. The first-person combat seemed really solid. I really like the look of the world. It was, pretty just classic realism, I guess. But I liked how vibrant and colorful and playful it seemed. And this is, more Payday. I don't think it's breaking the mold in terms of what that series is, which you don't need it to. But I'm pretty excited for this one to come to Game Pass. I will definitely be jumping in, check it out. Always games I've wanted to play. I think I have Payday 2 on Steam, and it just like didn't work on my computer or something like that. But I'm sure this will work on Series X. But do you think you'll be carving out time in September? If it comes out like around Starfield, like I don't know if how much I'll be playing this one, but do you think you'll be trying to make some time for Payday?
Well, I've never played the Paydays before. It was always Grand Theft Auto. That's where I kind of like jumped on board. But I know
at first I was like, are they showing GTA? Like I almost I was getting a bit of that vibe for 10 seconds.
Some of my friends are huge into Payday. They really, really enjoyed Payday over Grand Theft Auto. So I'm sure we'll be picking this up. But yeah, it looked great. I think it might have said world premiere, but I'm pretty sure this was announced a long time ago.
Yeah, I think if it's coming out in September, I would expect that it would have been shown off at some point. Now they're just kind of the announcement here is more locking it is like, okay, this is a Game Pass title now, and reaffirming that date, or maybe it didn't have a date before, something like that. So I know Kirkland's into that, so I'm curious to hear what he thinks about this one. I'm bundling these announcements are split across the show, but I'm going to combine them here, which is that we saw, I think it was at last year's showcase that Xbox was really going hard on Persona, getting a lot of those games on Game Pass. which is, Xbox. I think a big part of their strategy right now is like really trying to crack more into that Japanese market. They're a very small market over there right now, but there's obviously a lot of potential, and they're trying to crack in there. And Persona is a good way to break down that door. So they showed off Persona 3 Reload, which I think Persona 3 was like the portable one, like the Vita game or something like that. So it seems like maybe Reload is a bit of a console port of that. This is me guessing and not being a big Persona guy, so take that with a grain of salt. And then Persona 5 Tactica, which I, once again, could not get a vibe if that was a new game or if that is a game that is getting ported now to Xbox. I feel like it's new. It's kind of got chibi style Persona 5 settings, so those characters like Joker and whatnot, but with more of a turn-based tactics game. So I obviously love tactics games, so I'll definitely want to jump in and check that out, even though I'm not a big Persona guy. And then I think maybe the biggest thing in the show was a game called, or biggest thing from this part of it was Metaphor de Fantasio. I'm probably saying that a bit incorrectly, but this is a new game from the Persona team that I believe is a day one Game Pass title. And I guess, they've done Shin Megami Tensei, and then that split off into Persona, which is now even bigger than that original series. And this seems like not necessarily in that world, but it's got that same style. It's definitely the same team making it, and it's a new game from that. So I think that's a pretty big deal to get that on Xbox day one, but also if it is Game Pass, to get it in there with their service. It's a great way to break into that Japanese market in a big way, and obviously that's huge in America now too and all that. So I think that was not necessarily one for me, and I personally don't really care. I don't know if I'll check it out, but I think that's really huge for Xbox as a brand. So it was good for them to see that.
Yeah, I would second that. These are not my area of games, but for Xbox to be dipping their toes into these types of different titles and franchises, and let's do it. Let's broaden our horizons for new gamers.
Something that is more up my alley is Avowed. So I've been very, anxiously waiting, or I'll say patiently waiting, not anxiously waiting, to actually see some gameplay, to get more details on this, because we only had that cinematic kind of teaser trailer 2 years ago at this point, I think, was Avowed. Right, so it's been a bit. So they confirmed that's coming out next year, which who knows if that will stick. But they did show a lot of gameplay, and that's promising. So Avowed is from Obsidian, who have made Fallout New Vegas. They did, of course, The Outer Worlds, and then last year did both Grounded and Pentiment. Grounded was my game of the year last year, so I'm obviously a huge fan of Obsidian. Love Fallout New Vegas, and this looks fantastic. I think visual quality wise, it's not one of those like it is AAA, but not like Starfield level or like Forza level in terms of like blowing you away graphically. I think it is more in the Outer Worlds kind of quality, I guess, tier in terms of Obsidian. Not necessarily being a smaller team, but like they have a lot of mini teams within their bigger studio and all that. But I really liked what we showed off here. This is one of those trailers that I'm going to watch like 2 or 3 more times and just like try and pick out a lot of details. I think one of the big things I love about the studio of Obsidian is the dialogue, the RPG mechanics, your choices mattering in their games, that being a big deal. It's hard to show off that stuff in a trailer like this, right? It doesn't come across as well as like showing combat and whatnot. So I feel like they did show more of the combat side of things, but I am just very excited to stomp around in this world, meet the characters, make big decisions, have multiple playthroughs, try all these different play styles. And then, just the combat and all the enemy types. I loved all the look of all the enemies, and then like the combat with these different environmental, or not environmental, but more elemental attacks is what I was looking for, of like the ground-based magic where you can suck an enemy into the ground with vines, or just fire attacks, ice attacks, all that classic stuff, and then all those melee weapons that you'd expect from a big fantasy game. So I definitely wanted to see more. I need to see more in terms of what the overall scope of the game is. Like, is it truly open world? If so, is it Outer Worlds style, open world, which is not really that huge, or are they getting a bigger scale here with the bigger Microsoft budget? But at least from the combat side of things, I was pretty into it. So, yeah, what did you think of Avowed?
Yeah, it's giving me those Elder Scrolls vibes, just the way the spells
definitely
are conjuring. And yeah, I love when we get into a situation where when you conjure up magical spells, it's so much more elementally powerful and just visually pleasing. I really, really like that. So you were talking about how your choices matter with these types of games, and I like how that was kind of the overarching like narrating theme, was like, oh, you have the the powers to destroy us, the
Yeah.
powers to save us, kind of thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's gonna be very cool to see how this unfolds. And this is totally a game that's gonna satisfy that itch for people that are big Elder Scrolls fans. They're waiting on Elder Scrolls 6 for another like 30 years, and like they're gonna be playing Avowed until then. So
Yeah. Next up, I think these might just be quick hits. I don't know if we have much to say, but Sea of Thieves getting its new update, of course. I think this one is pretty cool. It's a Monkey Island crossover event. So last year or 2 years ago now, they did the Pirates of the Caribbean thing, and now they have Monkey Island. So they're just killing it with the crossovers. I think this is a good one. A little more niche than Pirates, of course, but I think this is a good one nonetheless. That's coming out in July.
that just to quickly interject, that kind of like looped me over because like I saw the Lucasfilm Games card
I know,
pop up,
dude.
and I was like, Star Wars crossover?
Because they're in the boat,
Indiana?
and like the camera's looking up. You see all the
I
stars.
know.
I was wondering that too. I'm like, this crossover doesn't make any sense, but it like they did the Disney thing last year. They could do it. So yeah, I was equally fooled. I wonder if they did that intentionally or. It seems like a risky thing because then people are gonna be like Monkey Island. I don't care, but there's a lot of Monkey Island fans, and that obviously the setting and whatnot really fits. That's cool. I was a bit confused by this. I gotta be honest that when Flight Sim and Forza came on, those were when I was like, okay, I'm gonna go do some dishes because I know what to expect here. But then I feel like I missed something because I feel like Flight Sim was like a new Flight Sim. Like it seemed like
It's a
not
new
just
one, yeah.
DLC, but like I don't know. I thought that seems like the kind of game where you just continually add and revamp the one that exists and make it bigger and better. So I was a bit surprised by that. But like, is it called Flight Sim 2 or is it still just called?
It's called Flight Sim 2024. That was the title they dropped.
Okay, so maybe every year they'll just like, it's like an iPhone, you know, like just like play the newest version or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's Flight Sim. You know what to expect there. The funny weird crossover they did like Top Gun last year. This year they have the Dune crossover. So it's weird, like, you know, obviously you think Flight Sim are supposed to be like pretty accurate to the real world, but then there's going to be those giant like sand strolling, like, you know, mining things are going to be in like some desert somewhere, or is like this like other planet where you're going to actually go to a Dune planet. That would be cool, but I'm guessing it's just like on Earth they're like taking over some desert and making it Dune-ish.
They did it with Halo as well. You could fly the Pelican. So this is
Right.
something new that they're kind of exploring.
Yeah, they have like the I forget what the name of it is, but like the little kind of dragonfly helicopter thing, so you can obviously fly that thing around, which does look pretty fun. But.
Yeah, I really like. I love Flight Simulator. My experiences in it is not as much as I wish I had. Like, I'm flying over like Kelowna and stuff like that, and like in the previous one, it's such a good time. It's so again immersive. Just you got all these things you got to do, like take off and just fly around. I love flying seaplanes. That's one of my favorite things to do. But
Nice.
seeing how beautiful this was, and just seeing how they were talking about expanding it into doing. Like rescuing people out hiking, doing like transporting like cargo and firefighting too, dropping payloads of water over forest fires.
Right.
Like there's so many cool things here that, man, it gets me excited. Like I'm not going to be able to immerse myself in all of that, at least for a while, but this is the kind of stuff that, you know, a kid's going to put it on and play and like, you know what, this is the starting foundation of someone going off to become a forest firefighter or whatnot. Like it's great that this is going to shape people's minds to kind of like want to be able to do these things in life and kind of guide them and just kind of like get their toes wet. I think it's super cool.
Yeah, I feel like if Flight Sim wasn't like 100 gigabytes, I would have it on my hard drive and like
Yeah.
want to jump into it more, but it's so beefy. And we'll talk about storage a bit later on in the showcase. But also I think that the Dune, like the timing's really nice in that because this comes out in like September, October. So does the next movie. So I think the timing there is really nice. I'm glad that they got that timing nailed down. Next up was Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, which is coming next year once again, the 2024.
Sorry, Dylan.
Yeah, you'll hear a lot of that. I thought this trailer, cause I like that they kind of were showing this off of like, okay, last year we showed off like a gameplay sequence of like a combat against that giant. And they were like kind of showed a quick sizzle reel of what that was, again, reminding you. But then they're like, okay, we're going to show you something different this year. And it's like, here's more of what the narrative is going to be like. Here's the kind of the trippiness of the game. I feel like if you watch this direct on YouTube and you had like headphones on or something, you would really like, I feel like they're really throwing that audio out, which is like a big thing they've highlighted is like how much they have gone hard with the audio here. I thought this is a really, really great trailer. As someone who has not played the first Hellblade, it's one that I'm going to play like kind of before the second one comes out, so I know I'll get to it. but it immediately throws you off balance by the character is like crawling through this really tight like kind of rock space, so you're immediately like claustrophobic. The camera angle is really weird in a way that makes you feel a bit uncomfortable, and then the character walks into this like what seems like a very beautiful cave. The lighting is insane, and then like things start getting a bit trippy, and then over the course of like 2 or 3 minutes it gets more and more trippy, and like things are going out of space. She's looking in the water, all these reflections everywhere, and I'm like, man, this is exactly the kind of trailer I needed for the game, for a game like this. I think this looks amazing. I think the narrative, the quality, the detail, even the mocap I was very impressed by, just seeing the character walk around and her eyes look just like unlike anything I've seen before. And I think it was shown like in engine Xbox Series X, if I'm not wrong. So super, super impressed by this. Can't wait to check it out. Hopefully it does hit its release date of next year. Yeah, I was very, very impressed. How about you?
Yeah, I like that they kind of touched upon where they were leaving off last time, and just what they got into here. I had not really any clue what I was kind of watching. It's like, what the heck? Like, what is this person's story? Why is she here? What's she trying to do? And I was just totally lost. But that being said, like, I'm if you're familiar with the character, familiar with the narrative, then you obviously know and have a sense of what this story is going to be taking place, or what the overarching narrative is. Visually, it looked fantastic. Like, just for the cinematic, it looked very, very cool. And I think there's going to be a rich story that is here that I don't know if I'm going to get around to experiencing.
Yep. Next up was Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. So I'm a little bit confused about what's going on with the Yakuza and Like a Dragon, because me and Travis on Thursday talked about there's Like a Dragon Gaiden, A Man with No Name or something like that was just announced. I'm like, is that a remake? Is this a new game? And it's like, how's there another new game already coming out? But I would say this is maybe seems like the next mainline game from the series. Like after, it's very weird, right? There was Yakuza Like a Dragon, and now they've rebranded Yakuza to be called Like a Dragon. So now it's Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is the name of the game, which I think is a hilarious title. And I thought this is maybe like one of the best trailers I've seen in a long time. Like, I love tonally what they were doing here. You know, the character who it seems like this guy is maybe the same protagonist from Like a Dragon. Yakuza Like a Dragon. God, these names are already super confusing. So maybe it seems like a continuation, but I still haven't played any of those, so I can't really comment on that. But yeah, just this trailer of this naked guy waking up on the beach, all these different shots of his, you know, his junk getting covered by whatever, the surfboard, or this girl like has this coconut drink, she picks it out and there's like some bottle of lotion there covering him. I was just laughing my ass off. I thought it was a really great trailer, great way to set the tone of like what this world is, and I think this game is very goofy and over the top, and I feel like I definitely got that from this trailer. I feel like for this, you almost don't really need gameplay. It's just like, here's the next game. It's coming out next year. You'll get more gameplay later. I thought this was like perfect. They did exactly what they needed to. I didn't catch if this was a day one Game Pass, though I know all the other Yakuza games, I think, well, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them are on Game Pass right now. It's been another big series that Xbox has been trying to get over on their console. So I would imagine this would be a day one Game Pass, and that would be a pretty big deal, I think, the next Like a Dragon game to be a day one title for them. So yeah, I think you were chuckling over there too. So I think you also enjoyed this trailer.
I did, and I kept saying, like, okay, yeah, this is Yakuza related, and I know the Yakuza franchise because Ruben's played it. He loves it.
Right.
We've played some of the mini games that are like pool and stuff like that, and we've dabbled around picking fights in the streets. It's a fun time. And so when this trailer came on, I'm with you there. I was laughing. I'm like, this is so outrageous. Like, did you get to really learn anything from it? No, just a guy woke up on the beach and he's naked, and it takes him a good minute before he realizes he is naked. But yeah, this the way they did it, the crab shell like moving along
awesome.
as he's walking. Yeah, it's just so obnoxious.
I loved it. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Fallout 76 made its appearance as all these, you know, you got every one of these showcases. Elder Scrolls Online is going to pop up. Sea of Thieves is going to pop up. Fallout 76 is going to pop up. I feel like 76 has actually made the recovery at this point. It seems like is the case. You know, it had a pretty rough launch, but now it's in a place where people are enjoying it. A lot of fans of it. And I like this idea that the expansions for this game are just like going to different cities. So rather than like having to wait 7 or 8 or maybe now 10, 15 years now between entries, because Bethesda now has 3 games in rotation with Starfield in the mix. Instead, like here, we can explore new cities this way, and then, you know, the next Fallout 5 will have another big new city, whatever it is. But now they're going to Atlantic City. I don't really know much about Atlantic City. I don't know if this is a big hype one. And so far, I feel like the ones they're choosing for 76 don't really interest me greatly. I don't think I'll be jumping in for this one, but I think someday down the line, I'll jump into 76 and I'll have a lot of content to jump into. Anything on Atlantic City here?
No, I mean it looks fun. I'm always down for like a new location, an open world game like this. I've not played 76 though. I'm just happy to see that the company is turning this game around. Games that have rough starts, but they actually dedicate their time and their mind power towards turning it around. Gets a lot of respect from me. Major kudos to the team for this.
Path of Goddess is a Capcom title coming out. I don't know if I have much to say on it. Should we move along?
We can move along.
Forza Motorsport. I can't remember if did it have a date I feel like it had 2023, but we didn't have the day yet. But maybe I'm wrong about that. And maybe the showcase me and you broke down in like January did in fact have the date. Either way, it's coming out October 10th. I think that's pretty solidly going to happen at this point. It's Forza. I'll be checking it out because it's Game Pass, but I don't know if there's too much to say about that one. Anything from you?
No, cars on stage. It's a classic stunt, and yeah, it looks beautiful. Because it's on Game Pass, I'm gonna try it for sure.
Definitely. Overwatch 2, I was slightly confused by what's going on here. So obviously the Blizzard acquisition has not gone through yet. It's been blocked. It's been unblocked. No one fucking knows. Who knows? But at least we can say on Overwatch 2, I guess is getting like a Game Pass bundle in August in which you can like get some new access to these characters. I was a little unclear on what it is. There's like some new content, like some single player stuff, and then I thought they canceled the single player. I don't know. Overwatch 2 is kind of a big mess, and I don't really know what to think about this. Depending on what actually is available with... I mean, I guess it's free to play, so I can jump in already, and then Game Pass is like, here's a bundle with some additional stuff. I'm pretty checked out of Overwatch at this point, so I don't know if there's much to go on here.
Yeah, I mean, I've played the first one quite a bit. I enjoy it, but I'm with you. I thought that they canceled the single player narrative, so I'm kind of unsure with this, and yeah, I don't know.
The next up was a kind of surprise title here. I don't know how you pronounce this, but it's spelled Jusant. I don't know if it's supposed to be French and like Jusant or if it's like Jusant. Like that's a very weird. I don't know, but essentially, it's this game set in the mountains. It seems like, and you're playing a climber. You got your climbing gear. You climb up this mountainside, and there's all sorts of weird little structures or settlements and things like that. You're climbing between them, exploring these like vast mountain ranges. I was actually really, really into this. I've obviously just been deep in the climbing mountain hole for the last year here, and so to like see this game with like some pretty accurate looking climbing, I was like pretty into it. And I really like this idea that like rather than a game where you're starting down at ground level and have to climb up to the highest peaks, and that's like one of the highlights of the game. It's like, no, we're gonna start you in the mountains, and the whole game is set in the mountains, and you're climbing around these really sketchy environments. It's definitely like an indie title in terms of the budget of it, but I like the art style too. I like the look of the mountains and whatnot. So I'm pretty into this. This was a nice surprise for me. Probably a day one Game Pass. I'm excited to check that one out.
Yeah. Watching, I thought, oh, this is definitely a Dylan game for sure.
Nice.
He's on the climbing path right now, and this
grind.
is all climbing. So
yeah. Then there was what looks like a horror game called Still Wakes the Deep coming out next year. Which is, you want to talk about this one? Tell us about it.
This totally sold me. I'm all down for it. At first, I thought like, oh, is this going to be something related to like Dark Pictures or something like that? But no, obviously it's a first-person survival experience by the looks of it. There is definitely some kind of entity or creature you're dealing with because shit's going sideways and you could hear something like growling. But just maneuvering through this very isolated setting, that's one of my checkboxes checked. You have a creature you're running from. That's another checkbox. It just looks so eerie. I'm down. And if this wasn't on Games Pass, I would buy it to try it out.
Oh, wow.
I really this sold me. I feel like there's not enough games like this. A lot of them are all in development on Steam or something like that. But when you get one that's been like, I'm hoping polished off more like something like this and or like a Quarry. Yes, I'm in there.
Yeah, no, I love the setting of this being like, what was it called, like an oil rig, I guess, out in the ocean, which I think is great for a few reasons. One is like that's a pretty unique setting for a game like this. Like I can't think of another horror game that has that, so that's kind of unique. I love the isolation angle of it, where you truly are out on your own and no one can help you, and I'm sure your radio doesn't work and you're trying to get it to work in this, and that seems great and terrifying. But then also just like the vastness of the ocean around you. The ocean is just naturally quite scary, and to have that as like a horror element to it, whether there's some big creatures in there or it's just making it so you can't leave this place. I think all of that really comes together for like a really, really great setting here. And then in terms of the horror stuff, like look like it's got some jump scares, it's got the first person, it's dark and scary, and you're trying to repair some stuff and all that. So I agree with you. I think this definitely hit the mark in terms of like selling me on a horror title. And yeah, once again, I think this is a Game Pass one. If so, I'll be jumping into it for sure. Then there was a game called Dungeons of Hinterberg, and I feel bad. I already forget what this one was. Do you remember what this one looked like? I'm gonna look up a picture so I can remember.
Yeah, that
here.
was like it was a really colorful one, like the skateboarding.
Oh,
it was
yeah,
the cell
yeah,
shaded
yeah.
one.
I actually really liked the look of it. I think the name maybe not a great name because I kind of forgot what it was. But you're right, the cell shaded. I really loved the art style. The very colorful, kind of vibrant, comic booky sort of look to it. The combat looked pretty cool. One of the puzzles really stood out to me, where there was like you're essentially on this like landmass thing, almost like in a Mario Galaxy kind of way. You're like shifting it around and walking on the side of this thing. So I was actually really into it. I'm glad you jogged my memory there on what it was, but I thought it looked really cool. Actually, this one's coming out next year as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one looked fun. I was watching it with Madison. This is one point Madison piped up is like, "Oh, this looks like a fun game." Like, okay, make note, might
Nice.
download it.
Yeah, a good one to put on the list. And then Keanu Reeves came out on stage to talk to us a little bit about Cyberpunk, and I like the way they did this, where it wasn't like Phil Spencer like, and now welcoming Keanu Reeves, and then like have some bad small talk for 5 minutes, and then like actually show the trailer. I like that it was just Keanu in a room. He was kind of awkward in like a wholesome, kind of cute sort of way, just doing his Keanu thing. And yeah, he was showing off. He was like, "Here's the debut trailer for Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty," even though I feel like there's been a couple trailers before, so I don't know how accurate that was. This is coming out September. I was a little confused why this was here, because this is not Game Pass. It's not coming to Game Pass. It's not. There's nothing like exclusive about it. I guess Xbox just wanted to have this big pop at their showcase, and I guess they just wanted Keanu, because if you have Keanu at your showcase, like that's instantly gonna bump it up a couple points in the prestige. I really was hoping for the Game Pass addition to this. I think that would have been really fun. And I think maybe honestly one of the biggest things keeping me from jumping back into Cyberpunk is that I picked it up on PS4. I don't have a PS5 yet. I don't know if you can upgrade when I do get a PS5. And like I want to play a current gen version of the game. I don't want to go back to the PS4 version. So I'd love to play it on Game Pass, but I don't really want to repurchase the game again. So that's really my one very personal hold up. In terms of what they show off for Cyberpunk, it's cool, but I also find it hard to trust anything that they show from marketing from those games now, just because of how much they lied with all the stuff they showed pre-launch. So I don't want to get my hopes up for a thing that doesn't actually look like what they showed us. So I thought this was pretty cool. Do you see? I know you have Game Pass, or you don't have you do have Game Pass, but you also have Cyberpunk. Is this something that's going to bring you back to it? This Phantom Liberty DLC with Idris Elba?
Yeah, like this probably would, like, to a degree. I just need to get back and recommit to that game wholeheartedly, because like there's so much. Like I love playing it. It was so fantastic, everything that they did. And I didn't have any of those initial problems when this game released, but I saw it on my shelf. It's waiting for me to jump back in. So this might be something that I can take advantage of and expand with. I love seeing Keanu's character back. His presentation was, yeah, you said it, just awkward but very humble and innocent. And like he's at the end, he's like, "Check out the trailer," and then they kept the camera there for a second, and he like sprints to the side really quick, like out of frame. It was just,
I love
like,
that.
it was really funny. Yeah, he's definitely, like you said, gonna add like a little few extra points to the presentation. So, yeah, I think it's good.
A bit of a goofball. Then they showed the City Skylines sequel coming October 24th, Game Pass title there. I thought this was a really good trailer. I do like city builders and builders in general, but there's just so many of them that I think it's hard to pick, just one, or like what's the selling point to make me jump into a new one. And there's certain ones that have certain gimmicks to it. This doesn't really have a gimmick to it. It's just a straight ahead city builder in like a realistic Earth setting and all that stuff. but I thought it looked really good. I thought it was just a really, really well done trailer. Really sold me on it. So I'm definitely, because of Game Pass, going to be jumping in and checking it out and making a city. And hopefully, I think a big holdup I do have for these kind of games is that generally I think they work a lot better with mouse keyboard. So hopefully the Series X version has like really good controls to it, and I think they can get that down. But it always feels a bit more sluggish to do that stuff on a controller than it does mouse and keyboard. But even something like that Jurassic World one, I did enjoy jumping into that one on Game Pass console and like playing it through a controller that way. So I was pretty into this. Do you think you'll be jumping into that one?
Yeah, I think that something like this of that scale was really really selling it for me. I never played the first one, but seeing just how in depth this was, where you start off with nothing and you're creating the roads, the transit system, and you click on the cities, you can see like how many kids, teens, and stuff. You can see where like there's traffic issues and everything. It seems so wonderful. And you mentioned Jurassic World. That's great as an example because there's so many things that make it difficult using a controller, and that's why I actually will refuse to buy those games on a console. I will do it on PC. It's too difficult, And when you have something as immersive as this game is, don't do that to yourself.
Yeah, that's true. Towerborn is coming out 2024. This is the next game from the Banner Saga developers. It's kind of got a co-op focus, and I guess the closest way I could describe it is like almost like a Castle Crashers type of gameplay to it, where it's like a side-scrolling action game, but not like a 2D specifically side-scrolling in that way. I just picture Castle Crashers. I feel like it's got that style to it. Once again, the co-op focus. I feel like I was missing something of the overall hook because it seemed like once again there's this tower in the middle, and that seems like where all of life on this planet has kind of gone to as like the last safe haven. And it seems like you're going out of these different areas with your team and like almost like liberating areas and expanding the map. And it seemed like there's a grid like element to the map and like a civ way where you're expanding it, but I feel like they didn't really show too much of that. So I guess that was my question was, okay, I understand the gameplay, the like combat and the side scrolling element to it, but what is like the greater overall hook of why you're doing this and what you're building towards and stuff like that? So I think I needed a bit more as a selling point, but I think the trailer was decent for what it is. And I think that style of game, like Castle Crasher, is very like popular game back in the Xbox arcade days. And I feel like not a lot of games have actually done that style of gameplay since then. I'm sure there's been a few, but I can't think of too many. So I think it's kind of cool and almost like a bit of a throwback already. So I thought this was a decent trailer, but I definitely need to see just a little bit more.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun. I mean, if we had a group of people to kind of dabble with this, I'd be down to experiment with it.
Yeah.
And it looked cool too how the players are able to combo off of each other when they were fighting the characters on the screen and such. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say though about it.
Yeah. Clockwork Revolution is actually the last game here we have to talk about because we did Starfield at the beginning there. But yeah, Clockwork Revolution is the latest game from In Exile, who most prominently made the Wasteland games. Wasteland 3 was their new title from like 2 or 3 years ago at this point. But it seems like they are really changing gears. They have a whole new setting for this. Is more of a steampunk setting for this game, and it seems like it is a first-person shooter. And it seems like there's a lot of trippiness going on. There's a lot of like political turmoil and whatnot. I couldn't really get a vibe. This is like an open world game where you're like mostly set up in this city and you're doing quests and stuff like that, or if there's more exploration outside of this specific location. I thought this was a pretty good showing for here's the next thing Exile's doing. It's a big departure from their previous titles, and it looks pretty good. Very like there was little bits of gameplay in here. It was mostly a CGI sort of trailer, though, and yeah, I mean, no release date on here, so this could be a couple years away. We don't really know. But I actually thought this was a very good showing and a good way to be like, okay, here's the next thing the studio is working on. And you might not see it in the next Xbox showcase, maybe even not the next one after that. But eventually you'll get a bigger deep dive on what this game is, and hopefully it does pretty well from them. Is this up your alley? I don't really know if I can pinpoint this as a Taylor game or not, so I'm curious.
I honestly thought that this was some kind of like BioShock related title when I was first seeing
Had a bit
it.
of BioShock Infinite energy to it. Yeah.
I'm tempted to try it because I liked how it was this as you're progressing through this game, you're going to be dealing with the state of the reality changing into different realities that you can affect. You can affect the past, it affects the future. So you're going to be doing different events causing these eruptions, and this main statue is going to be changing depending on what kind of things you've changed in history, which I think is pretty cool. So
Really cool.
and I like the steampunk aesthetic too. Yeah, I'm very curious, and I didn't get the sense it was open world either. It felt much more like a very linear kind of story narrative.
Right,
So,
like maybe like one just larger city and a really confined spot where because of those changes that you're talking about, each like block, each corner, you don't need a million places to go because like each one is going to be really in depth and it's going to change based on your actions. So yeah, pretty cool. And then they kind of closed off the Xbox showcase element with showing a slightly revamped version of the Xbox Series S. It is just black, so it looks a lot more like the Xbox Series X, but it has a 1 terabyte hard drive, which I think a big criticism of that Series S has been very limited hard drive space. And I think it was $349. That would be American. I don't know how that converts to what the price was previously. Like, is that the same price, but they've now just like, here's a newer version with better hard drive space, or is this like $50 more? Was it 300 originally? It's always hard for me to keep track too, because like they always show this stuff in US dollars, and we're over here with our Canadian buckaroos. So
let's take a look here. So the Xbox Series S, 379, 512 gigabyte edition.
Is that Canadian though?
That's Best Buy Canada.
379. So is that the old one or this new one that you're talking about?
That's the old one. The old Series S.
Hard to convert the numbers on the fly, but I thought this was a bit weird because like this is when Phil Spencer came out and he was like recapping essentially what the showcase was. He's like, remember when we showed you Clockwork Revolution 2 minutes ago? I was like, yes, I do remember that, Phil Spencer thing. And he's like, I know, a couple criticisms you've had of our console. One is hard drive space. So here's this, and he shows off this. But like, what about Series X users? Like, I feel like this is kind of. I feel like it missed the mark a bit. And I wasn't there just something a few days ago where there's like some new hard drive. I feel like you and like I think maybe Star Wars Lucas in the Discord were talking about this.
It was because the storage hard drives were limited to only Seagate, I believe. So now WD has now put out their official storages at a really, really good price.
A lot more affordable,
A lot more affordable. They should have touched upon it here just to kind of let people know, because that's not something that everyone knows about. And I suffer from that problem. I have 2 external hard drives that I picked up from Best Buy, and it holds games, but it doesn't work for playing the games off of it because they're so fast, they're powerful. Quick resume doesn't work off of those hard drives. It's a pain in the ass. So this is huge
for Series S. Yeah, I guess so. With that new one you're talking about, you like on your Series X, you can plug that into your console and you can have additional space that
the little
you can
hard drive
run it off of.
Yes, and I'm assuming you have that ability on your Series S, right? You can put like.
I guess so. I don't see why not. Yeah.
Are you limited to like the brick with like the USB cord that goes in, or can you put in the smaller cartridges for memory?
I would have to imagine they would have those same dongles on the background so you could put more space in. So I guess, okay, there's your solution for Xbox Series X users, and here's your solution for new Series S users. And then I guess, once again, you can still use that other new thing that came out recently into your existing Series S if you have the old one. So I guess this, like, I don't know, for a new hardware update from this, I don't think this was like a huge, blow off the roof kind of moment. Although it is nice, and I think the black looks sleek. It looks nice. It would look good next to your Series X, but why would you have like a Series S and X next to each other? I guess unless you're Travis and you have 2 TVs in your like living room, I guess in that case it would work in that way. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think about this? It's like I don't foresee you ever needing to pick up a Series S because you have X, right?
I honestly will probably never get it.
Yeah.
I mean, unless like down the road, maybe in the case where you have a family and you have like a downstairs game room and you want to use this as like an entertainment console more so, because that's what the Xbox can do nowadays. It's not just for gaming. This has no disk drive in it, so you can use it for streaming, you can use it for watching 4K films, all that kind of stuff. So maybe more in like an entertainment sense.
Yeah, I guess it's a good. I guess it really displays where Xbox's focus is, and their focus is getting as many people in the door as possible. And now you've just made the cheaper console choice an even better selection in a lot of ways, because its biggest issue, because like it doesn't have the disk drive and stuff, not a huge issue. I think the biggest issue with it was space. Like if you want to get this thing as a Game Pass machine, but then it has no space to put those games on, that's obviously a big issue, whereas the Series X just has a bigger hard drive by default. So yeah, I think this is good for people who have not picked up an Xbox yet. And, you know, the timing of this is good. Once again, it comes out September 1st, so it comes out right before Starfield. There's a reason they did that. Even like when they had the little cinematic showing off the console, there's some spacey Starfield stuff going on. So I feel like they're really trying to say like, hey, if you haven't picked up a console yet and you're going to pick one up for Starfield, once again, there's a reason they showed this right before the Starfield Direct. They're really trying to hammer it home. If you don't have the console yet, here's a great way to get into the ecosystem. It's a bit cheaper. You can play Starfield on it. You got more space on it. So, yeah, I think it's objectively a good thing for people who don't have the console yet. I guess just for us, it's not terribly exciting. And then I guess you could say like the other hardware stuff was, here's that headset, here's that controller from the Starfield Direct. So they still hit you that way. I don't really feel like I need a refresh on my Series X. Like I don't need like a slim version yet, you know, like it's too soon for anything like that. So I wasn't really expecting even any hardware stuff here. So I guess this comes out as a bit of a surprise. Once again, it's objectively good for Xbox. I just don't think there's much for us pre-existing owners.
With PlayStation, how much storage space does the non-disc drive version have?
I don't know. Let me look it up. PS5 storage. It looks like the 825 gigabytes, maybe for both of them, or maybe you can get different versions that have different amount of space.
I guess you can also just plug external hard drives in with no problem, too.
And I guess 600, yeah, maybe that's a thing. 667 gigabytes is actually usable. That classic thing of like you get a terabyte, but then like a bunch of it is taken up just to run the console and stuff like that. Yeah, so I don't have the exact answer for you there. You mentioned that you felt like there were some things missing in this showcase. What were those things for you?
I was hoping for some Gears of War. I was hoping for some Halo. I was hoping for there's another one that I had.
State of Decay was one that I felt was.
Thank you.
Yeah, I felt like that. I mean, the showcase had a lot of stuff, so I didn't feel like, oh man, it really needed State of Decay to make this like a good direct. But I do feel like, man, where is that game? Like, it's almost like slightly concerning that they didn't have, like, considering that they did Fable here with no date. They did whatever by midnight that game's called. They didn't have a date. Like, those things I feel like are 2025. So, like, is State of Decay, like, just really, really far and they just really have no idea? So that one definitely stood out to me.
Yeah, State of Decay, that's such a shame. We got the cinematic ages ago, and that was it. I love State of Decay 2. I played the living daylights out of that game when it was co-op. I was playing with my friends that freaking game. It was such a good time. So the fact that here we are now with State of Decay 3 that's introduced, we know about it, and we're gonna have zombie wildlife.
Yeah. So did I say 2? I meant 3. Yeah,
3. Okay. Yeah, just having wildlife zombies immersed in there too. Like it's fantastic, and the fact that we're not touching upon it at all is very concerning. I think you're absolutely right. So there's a massive following, like. Maybe it's a cult following because I'm a part of it, but there's definitely people waiting for it.
If they're making sequels, obviously it sold well enough to justify such a thing. So, yeah, I'm curious about that. What were you expecting from Halo, or what were you hoping for? I guess
I was hoping for Halo Wars 3. You know, I know it's probably not going to happen. Ever since I think the past like 6 months, we've just been getting updates like, oh, here's a new trailer for a new season of Halo multiplayer. We're getting some new maps, some new game modes, stuff like that, new cosmetics. That's all fine and dandy, but like I'm kind of checked out on that. I did season 1. I played a lot of it, enjoyed the cosmetics, the unlockables and such, and the maps, but I'm bored. I want something new. Like the co-op campaign was enough to kind of pull me back. I don't even know if that's actually in the game yet because I beat the storyline and I haven't gone back to touch it at all.
I think the co-op is in there now.
Okay.
I hope so, at least. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I would have wanted from Halo Infinite. I guess you make a good point. It is a bit strange that it didn't show up in some capacity, like here's our new season or something, considering that like Elder Scrolls, we already knew about that expansion, but they like reiterated it here. Fallout 76 getting its moments, Sea of Thieves, all these things that are these kind of live servicey things for Xbox making an appearance. So yeah, I guess that's maybe a bad thing, or maybe they just really wanted to make this thing succinct, and they knew that okay, we already have 40 minutes of Starfield, so we got to like button up the rest of it and whatnot. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Halo. I don't feel like I needed to see it, but it is also a bit strange that wasn't there. And Gears of War 6, because 5 came out in the end of 2019, so I guess it's like 4 years. It's been a while at this point. I still feel like it's maybe a bit too soon for that. Do you think that's the next game that studio is making though? Is like Gear 6, and they're just working away at it right now, waiting for that big reveal?
So, because like Gears Tactics, did that come out after or before Gears 5?
That was definitely after, I want to say.
Okay. Yeah, 2020. Yeah, so I feel like that's definitely something they're cooking up right now in the laboratory. And I mean, I'm assuming it'll be closing out the second trilogy, so it's gonna obviously end with a bang. But yeah, anything. I would just love anything just to let us know, like, hey, we're around here. Just drop us like a cool teaser cinematic or something. But
yeah, I guess it'd be hard to point to too many Xbox. This is not E3 because E3 didn't happen, but like big summer showcases, the big June direct, whatever you want to call it, just that thing that they do every year. I don't know how many of them have existed that haven't had any Gears or Halo presence. Like this is probably an outlier in that way, which I think is a good thing. I think it's good for their brand to not have to rely on two IP to be relevant. I think it's good that they can have a good direct and not even have those two, I guess, big tentpole series. But yeah, I guess they weren't there. If anyone thought Elder Scrolls 6 was going to be here, you're crazy. They definitely were not going to do that with the Starfield being the focus here. But yeah, anything else missing? I feel like I can't really think of too many. Like I could point out a couple, but I think they also showed so much stuff that like, here's what we got cooking for the rest of the year. Here's a bunch of stuff for 2024, and like, I don't know. I felt pretty satisfied. Like I think that was a pretty good sized meal for me.
I really would have liked some kind of superhero game or something like that. Just one of these studios be like, yeah, we're working on a Marvel game of this kind, but no, it's not to be.
Yeah, we know that they were given that, like Marvel came to them, was like, hey, you want to make a game, and they were like, nope, we're good. We're doing our other stuff right now. So maybe someday it'll happen. But yeah,
I also had like an inkling maybe we'd see something for that Indiana Jones game because they did have Lucasfilm things here, so it could have happened. But no, that's under the rug too, especially with the movie dropping at the end of this month.
That's a really good point. That timing would have been good. I guess the tricky thing with that is it is Machine Games, but we know Todd Howard's involved in some extent. But I'm guessing whatever Todd Howard's inclusion is, he's probably just like all hands on deck on Starfield right now until that's out the door, and then he maybe can go over there and really focus on that. So you're right. Now you've mentioned it, like there actually is a lot more things that are missing. I guess it's a good thing from my perspective that I didn't feel like anything was missing. Like they put together a pretty decent showing here, but there definitely is a lot of stuff in the barrel still. And who knows, maybe we'll see some of that like Gamescom. They maybe want to save a couple hit or two for Game Awards, right? So I'm sure that one of those things that we just mentioned that is missing could be a big pop that would show up there. So yeah, we love doing our out of 5 rating for these summer showcases. What would you give this puppy? What would you give it like on your quote unquote objective score, like what you think the showcase was, and then like your personal excitement, like those two different ratings? What would you give it?
What I think the showcase was I'd go like a 5 out of 5. Like I feel like it was really, really good. Again, those quick fires, just like new world premiere, coming to Games Pass, new world premiere, just going rolling them like crazy. So I think that's great. The discussions weren't too long when they focused on a specific title. I think that was fantastic. My own personal one that I would give it, I'd probably go like a 3 out of 5. It's still a pass, but I'm docking because I want to see more games that like I could really latch onto, but I necessarily couldn't. That being said, I got to see Star Wars. That's huge kicker for me. I got to see a bunch of other things that I really am excited to try to like dip my toes in and kind of experiment with and see what they're like. But yeah, the other kickers are just I want more of those heavy hitter games. I want more superhero games on Xbox. I'm seeing that Spider-Man 2 and thinking, oh, PS5, do I do it? No, I'm having a kid. I can't.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
I think my ratings are going to be pretty aligned here, which was not the case for Summer Game Fest, where I was pretty let down by that, but I gave it objectively a higher score. But I think I'm actually going to go for a 4 out of 5 on both my quote unquote objective one and my personal rating as well. I I just think across the board, like there's a lot of great indie surprises. Like those were a lot of first time showcases, world premiere, whatever you want to call those. Like I feel like some indie games really showed up in a big way and had really good trailers. From a lot of the first party, we got either some good updates or like I don't know, the Fable one, whatever. It's CGI, but I still feel like that was a really well done trailer, and people can get hyped about that. You're right that there are some things missing, but then I think there was also some good surprises in there too. But then I don't think there was that one thing that blew the roof off, or even I don't know. There was some really good stuff, but I feel like maybe one or two huge announcements could have put it into that 5 status, both for me just looking at it objectively and then for my personal excitement. And yeah, I don't know what Starfield needed to show to blow me away because I'm already at like a 10 out of 10 excitement level, but there could have been something there that would put it into a 5 out of 5 status. And yeah, I think my highlight of the show would definitely be Avowed, and I gotta watch that trailer a bunch more times and get more excited about that. But I'm almost more excited just about the idea of it and knowing it's Obsidian making a fantasy open world RPG. Like that's more exciting for me than even necessarily what the trailer showed. And I feel like there's a few of those. And then yeah, a lot of those indie games did hit for me personally, and some good stuff to get excited for. And yeah, definitely for me, I was a lot more excited for this than I was the Summer Game Fest showcase. I think there's a lot more for me here. And yeah, I'm excited tomorrow to go see what's going on with Ubisoft, because I think between Avatar, and by that I mean Star Wars, between Star Wars, Avatar, and then they're going to show some more Assassin's Creed Mirage, and then whatever else surprises. Like that's actually shaping up to be a pretty exciting showcase, which I think for Ubisoft not always the case for me personally. So that's cool. And I don't know what Capcom's got going on, but I'm curious to see what's going on there. But yeah, I don't know. I guess overall, maybe slightly overwhelmed by this quote unquote E3 year. Not a ton of huge things, but still like just decent, good, solid mid high tier overall for things. But yeah, Taylor, any closing thoughts here for the day?
No, I think maybe some Skull and Bones stuff tomorrow. That's about it.
Skull and Bones. We're looking forward to it. Join us tomorrow to hear about Skull and Bones. Taylor, thank you for joining me. Once again, we'll see you again tomorrow for some more coverage of some more gaming exciting announcements. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.